Okay, so good afternoon. Thank you for giving us your time today. It's our 8th and final session in our pre-K technical assistance series. And our topic today is family engagement. So before I get too far ahead of myself, I did want to do some brief introductions. I'm Nicole Medore, the early childhood specialist at the DOE on the early learning team. And I know Leanne is here. If she wants to do a quick introduction, that'd be great.
Hello, everybody. I'm Leanne Larson. I'm the director of the early learning team, and it's where our public pre-K program is based.
And I'll skip down the list real quick because I know Jane is here. So Jane, did you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Jane Kersling. I'm the contract grant specialist for the pre-K expansion grant.
Awesome, thank you. Marcy Wickham is our public pre-K consultant, and she is enjoying her last day of vacation in Ireland at the moment, so she's not going to be with us today. And Nina Cunningham is our Head Start State Collaboration Director. I'm not sure if Nina's joining or not. Happy to have her if she is able to come in. And then we also have now Sue Gallant, and she is our pre-K expansion consultant. And so those of you that received funding to expand pre-K programming under the recent NJRP RFA grant process, you'll get to know and love Sue over the course of the next year. So we're really excited to have her on. So the resource document is available here at this bit.ly link. It was sent out through email as well as, I believe, through your confirmation email with the link to today's session. It's just a document that we've updated with some video resources and digital resources that relate to each of the topics of the sessions over the last however many weeks, 16 weeks. And then our agenda today, like I said, the topic is family engagement. So I just wanted to provide some information and some thinking around that as we get ready to prepare for incoming students and incoming families that may or may not have been students and families of your schools in the past. So, and then of course, there's always time for questions and discussion at the end. With that said, please stop and interrupt me at any time if something pops into your head that you need some clarification or have a talking point around. And as long as Leanne and Jane are here, I know they'll pop in if I'm forgetting anything or speaking out of turn, what have you. So happy to be interrupted at any moment. So family engagement is a huge topic. It's one that we talk a lot about in our office on our early learning team, especially because in Maine, we're fortunate enough to have our Head Start State Collaboration Office in our Department of Education. In other states, that office often sits in DHHS. So having that Head Start Collaboration Office so close physically and on our team, Head Start has a really strong and positive reputation for their family engagement strategies. So having Nina Cunningham on board has really brought us all sort of up to par in terms of what family engagement could look like in our public schools, regardless of whether or not you have a partnership with Head Start or a partnership with the child care center or what have you. So it's been a really, really great addition and topic of discussion for our team to have. One of the biggest things that we tend to try to discern between is this idea of family involvement versus family engagement. They're very different things, even though the terms sound similar. When you're doing them in person and in actuality with your students and your staff at your school, they look different, and rightly so. So I wanted to sort of break those two terms apart. But I also want to make sure that it's clear that there's a time and a place for both of these strategies. Family involvement does not trump family engagement and vice versa. There's a time and a place for both actions. So when we think about family involvement, I describe it as implying doing two. So in this scenario, under family involvement, it often means that the teacher, the administrators, the staff of the school are telling parents or asking parents how they can contribute to their child's classroom. This might be through projects. Oftentimes our families come with a specific skill set that we might tap them on. You know, hey, could you come talk to our class about how to build a house or how to plant a garden or what have you. This might also mean reaching out to parents to say that a classroom needs items and materials, glue sticks, pencils, or they accept volunteers at any time, especially as we enter back into schools post-pandemic in a world where volunteers and adults come and go more freely into our classrooms. Family involvement also sort of revolves around the goals of the school and the goals of the student. But in this scenario, those goals are provided to the family. So families feel like they're helpers, they follow the teacher's directions and suggestions and feel like they have, you know, some level of welcome into the classroom space. This is also the most common strategies that we see, at least in my experience in the public pre-K space throughout Maine. So now we're going to flip the switch a little bit and think of it as family engagement and how this added to family involvement can really work to improve relationships throughout your school. So we think of engagement as implying doing with. So in this strategy, we're collaborating with families, we're relating to the family of each child. So this is a lot of added work to the plate of a teacher or to the plate of an administrator, but it's not impossible. It takes time. And under family engagement, we're really talking and looking for those reciprocal relationships. You as the school staff are going to the family specifically, and vice versa. Those families are responding to you, right? They're responding to your written communication. They're answering your phone calls. They're coming in for meetings, and you're doing things in a way that really boosts the relationship of that adult to adult sort of makeup of that school. In family engagement, we are including decision-making and goal setting with the family. Okay, it's not us telling them what we want the goals to be. We're saying, this is your child. This is what I observe in the classroom. What are you observing at home? And where do we want to see this child in the near future and in the long-term future? And you know, how are we going to get there together? It's two-way communication. So school calls the family and the family is not going to cringe because the school's calling, right? It's going to be a really open communication that's not always because the child is sick or because the child is in trouble. It's communication to say, I noticed your child today, you know, was whatever, whether it's good information to provide or just something that you relate to through the relationship, right? That those doors are always open. It's going to be more encompassing of the home and the community space. So maybe the students are transitioning to before and after school care programs or child cares and daycares outside of the school, and having an understanding of what their schedule is, where they're going, who those folks are, and who else needs to be involved in the relationship to better inform the students, excuse me, the students' outcomes in the school. Family engagement also encompasses participation, possibly in advocacy efforts, comprehension and program level systems, and inclusion of all students in the school. So in this scenario, families are equal partners in their child's education. And it's certainly possible that every family of your students is not going to be comfortable with this right away, and that's okay. Not every family is going to come to your school ready to be a reciprocal partner in their child's education. Some just don't understand possibly the makeup of the school or the routines of the school, and it's going to take time. But that time and that effort, you know, should be offered, should be there. And like I said, the family involvement strategies on the left-hand side should always be there as well. Some families are just more comfortable providing glue sticks and pencils, and that's okay. So what is effective family engagement? Family engagement is a collaborative and strengths-based process through which professionals, families, children, and community members build positive and goal-oriented relationships. So that's sort of the definition we're gonna sort of dance around for the rest of our time together today. Family engagement looks different for everyone. There isn't a one size fits all approach, right? Remember I said a few moments ago, this is a lot of added work for the teacher, because now not only is he or she getting to know their students, especially in the beginning of a new school year, but they're also actively trying to get to know the families. And the level of engagement that the family is going to bring to the table is going to be different from one family to the next. And that's, like I said, that's okay. It's just a matter of maintaining that effort, maintaining that outreach, and understanding that it's going to be a little bit different for each family. There's no wrong way to engage families, nor is there one right way. All we ask is that there's the effort put in. It's often a shift in mindset from previous thinking to a more cohesive and collaborative approach. So this is sort of that mindset add-on from involvement to engagement. So what we used to be comfortable thinking of as individual responsibility, perhaps the teacher's responsibility or the parent's responsibility, now we're shifting to expand that to a shared responsibility and partnership. What used to be perhaps a deficit-based or adversarial conversation is now moving into a strength-based and collaborative communication. What used to be a random act is now systemic. It's happening all the time. It's happening regularly. Parents and teachers know what to expect. What we used to see as an add-on is now integrated. What used to be driven by events is now driven through learning and outcomes. What used to be for compliance purposes is now ownership and continuous improvement. What used to be involvement in a one-time project is now sustained interaction. So I have another slide too that sort of talks about what our habits are, what we're really familiar with, and what the possibilities of those might be. So some familiar things that many schools and teachers are used to in terms of family involvement and family engagement. It's often communicated as optional. If you can provide glue sticks, we'll accept them. If you can join us on our math night, please come. If you can volunteer in the classroom on a day off, please let us know. Used to be events-based. So we're having an open house, please come. We're having a math or a reading night, please come. We're having a fundraiser or the Scholastic Book Clubs, right? Can you donate time, donate money, whatever that it may be. What used to be school-centered, right? All of these events that I just mentioned as examples happened at the school. Used to be for compliance efforts. Used to be intermittent and not scheduled on a regular basis. It used to be for head counts. How many parents are we getting into our schools? How many parents are we getting to volunteer and to donate? And it used to be for some, but not for all. So if we are able to stretch our thinking into a more family engagement mind shift, then our possibilities become that those opportunities are central and they're sustained. They're happening over and over. And there's a variety of opportunities, not just evenings, not just at the school. What used to be school-centered, can we think about it being family-centered? Where is a location where the family feels most comfortable? Perhaps that's at their home. Perhaps it's at the school, or it might be at a park in town or a coffee shop in town or the local library or somewhere public. Okay, so being sort of open to the idea that conferences, communications, interactions with families don't always have to happen at the school. What used to be for compliance purposes can now be goal directed, right? So you might recall we're working with your student on becoming more interactive with a group of peers of 3 and 4 peers in a space, right? So this is what we've been doing at school. What have you been doing at home? Here's a play group that you might be interested in, or what have you. It's systemic and specific to the student impact, and it's for all families. So I really love this visual, and we've added this purple circle to sort of highlight some strategies that might be of higher impact. But if you start over on the left, on the lower impact side, All of these examples are ones that I know we all know and love. And they're really, really great examples of engaging and involving families from a variety of reasons, right? Like I was saying, through fundraisers, through potlucks, through performances and showcases, through celebrations. But as we move along this continuum to higher impact and start to get inside of that purple bubble, this is where we see some examples that are really starting to stretch our minds around what family engagement could be for our students and our families. So I'm just going to leave this here for a minute for you to sort of take a peek at some of these examples. Many of them will be strategies that you and your staff use, and some of them might be new. And those are the ones I want you to sort of take note of for just a moment. So I'm just going to pause here. One of the higher impact strategies that's listed here that comes up a lot in conversation on our team and as we interact with school staff is one of the ones all the way to the right of home visiting. So pre-pandemic, this is certainly a strategy that Head Starts across the nation utilize. It's also a strategy that I know some, but not many, public schools utilize. I know when my own child was in pre-K, his public school teachers were providing home visits. It became difficult to schedule. Some of the home visits weren't as positive of an experience as they were intended to be. So unfortunately, my child's school stopped doing them. And I know that's the case in many others, especially through the pandemic when we were practicing, social distancing, what have you. But I want us to really start to think about coming back to strategies like that, like seeing the student in their home or in their comfort space outside of the school, and really starting to visualize what that family experiences or what that family has to offer outside of the walls of the classroom. A child is in your classroom for a minimal period of time, and they spend the rest of their time elsewhere. So getting to know what that elsewhere is and looks like, and you can visualize and really interact with the student around, can have enormous benefits for your relationship with the families and for your relationship with the student, thereby increasing the student's overall development and outcomes in the classroom. And some of the other higher impact strategies here, like the one above that, weekly data sharing folders, or positive phone calls home, or classroom observations, right? Those are ones that might be a little more comfortable or might be a little more easy to start up and do more regularly if you're not doing them already. If you are doing those already, then I would really encourage you to start thinking of those other pieces like home visits, like modeling of learning support strategies, like parent help on learning projects, etc. So any thoughts or questions, or this is a really great time to brag about your own programs and what you're already doing. I would love to hear other strategies. So if there's one that anybody has, please feel free to put it in the chat or unmute.
So last year, it's not directly pre-K related, although the pre-K parents at McGraw were certainly invited, but I held a monthly virtual meeting on a topic. And we did such things as what is your child, going to learn this year? It wasn't specific to every child, so I could see room for improvement of that. But in December, when the first report card came out, we said, how do you read your child's report card? And we held an hour-long, session about that. We unpacked NWEA scores for them. We talked about our PBIS survey results and led them through a protocol of looking at our data. So we did various things, and it was very well received. It was more about educating them on what we were doing, the parents and the families, so that we could be better partners. I would say that was kind of the goal. So it wasn't specifically pre-K related, but they were definitely invited, of course. So that was something really neat last year. And it was, the last Tuesday of the month, and it worked for a lot of people. So
Yeah, I think that's a great example, Jen, of regular personalized communication and even parent training events, even though it's not training specifically on a curriculum or assessment or something like that, but you are training them on the practices and routines and expectations of your school. It's also, I would think, would fall into positive phone calls home, right? Because you're in, again, like you said, it's not a one-on-one strategy, but it is a positive way of communicating to families, even if that is in a larger group. I think that's a perfect example. Thank you. There was something else I was just going to mention.
And I was going to mention, Nicole, the parent teacher conferences is there. So in November, I held one or at the end of October, what should you do at your upcoming parent teacher conference, and questions to ask your child's classroom teacher, and had a little handout. And so I had a slideshow for each one of them. And even if parents didn't come to the live event, I didn't record the session, but I did send home each of the slideshows the very next day to all of the families, so they would have it. The one where we did yardsticks from the leading early learning class, I had some parents who reached out that they were just so happy that they understood that their child was normal, and that it was okay, the things that they were seeing. And so there was some comfort in that, I guess. So that I just saw, it was really neat. And the people on the call were people who maybe wouldn't interact necessarily together in the same circles, but they were able to interact on screen. And I thought that was really great.
Yeah, that is really great. And like you said, often that can be a more comfortable interaction as well, as opposed to being in person, or it could be a really great way of sort of warming up to having an in-person event. And you reminded me when you mentioned yardsticks, the point I wanted to make earlier. As educators, especially teachers in the classroom, we've come to know and love the saying that parents and families are our students' first teacher, right? And so yes, I agree with that 100%. Before a student ever enters into our classroom doors, they've had interactions to some level with their parents and other adults. So there's a lot to be learned from those folks who have spent enormous amounts of time with that student. However, I add to that, because Marcy and I talk about this a lot as well in our meetings, that us as teachers and you all as administrators in a public school are experts too, and have a lot to offer to those parents and to those other adults interacting with the students when they're not in your building. A parent can tell you their child's sleep pattern, can tell you their child's favorite food, can tell you how their child likes to learn hands-on, get dirty, or sit in color, things like that. But you have, or when I say you, I mean public school teachers, staff, administrators, have a huge level of expertise as well that you can be providing to families. So there's this sort of give and take in the relationship, and that reciprocal relationship with family engagement, that both parties are offering, giving and taking expertise from each other, right? Not all, just because an adult has a child doesn't mean they're an expert on child development. We are, right? Not every parent knows that we shouldn't put juice in a bottle, but we know that. So being able to have those conversations in a space that's comfortable and is positive and is interactive is huge. So it's a difficult thing to do across the board, but over time and given sort of steps of getting there, it can be a much more comfortable situation.
I also really appreciated parent input on our CNA committee that met each trimester. I thought that that the parents that were on that, they had some more ownership, I felt like, in the goals and looking at the data of the school. And when we held our One School, One Book event in May, oh my goodness. It was, so many people came to it. It was overwhelming, but that was one of the goals that had come from our CNA group. And so, that was just really neat. When I look at the goal setting talks, involving them, we have parents on our PBIS committees, but that's truly around true initiatives and goal setting. And that's inviting them to the table as an equal partner. And I think that's what you're talking about, Nicole, is that not just a surface level, oh yeah, I've got a parent check mark, they're also a teacher here in the district, fill the gap kind of thing, but to actually have that input and that perspective on the committee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And being
Yeah.
open to the types of opportunities that are being provided for that level of input, and which families are engaging in that and which ones aren't. And the ones that aren't, trying to dig a little deeper into understanding why. Is it a timing issue, or maybe they're not available after schools on Wednesdays, and the time of the meeting or what have you is not conducive to their schedule. Maybe they don't have transportation to get somewhere, so could it be offered virtually or in another setting? And just being mindful of that. A lot of the things we're doing are working and are connecting with many families, but if we're not connecting with all of them, or with even just 80% of them, then what is the reason for that? And what are some things that we could be doing to be more supportive of their involvement and their engagement, I should say.
Yeah. Nicole, I think you touched on too something that is, I know as an educator myself, I had to really think about, was that sometimes school and school experiences have not been all that positive for a lot of our families. And if they are not feeling really comfortable about coming to us in a school, maybe we have to think a little differently about how we reach out to them. And maybe it's just finding a different setting to have opportunity for conversation and collaboration besides the school setting. So thinking about the larger community in which you live, are there some locations that might be more comfortable for families to come to? Do you have a public library that's got a nice meeting space and maybe you host something there? Or maybe you have a recreation department and families are more comfortable coming into that setting, and that's where you begin to build some relationships. So that's certainly one way to think about it. And I love, Jennifer, your example about the monthly meetings, and it was making me think too about making sure that we give families a chance to tell us what they want to learn more about as well. So sometimes, if we can find some ways in the beginning of the year or over the summer to make connections and say, even if we give them a list of a lot of different choices, what are some of these that resonate with you that you'd like to know more about? And then making sure that we respond to that. Because sometimes I think we have our kind of our agenda of what it is we know that they need, but maybe that doesn't line up exactly with what they are feeling like they need. So and that helps to build that give and take over time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and we're really sort of talking about these things now at the entry into school, right? At the pre-K level, or some schools just start at kindergarten, but those early elementary years. But certainly this idea of family engagement shouldn't just go away at a certain grade or a certain age. These strategies might morph and look a little differently as the child grows, but hopefully the school and staff are still committed to wanting to engage families. From a personal side of things, my daughter is entering high school next year as a freshman, which is a whole nother Zoom meeting, quite honestly. And the level of family engagement is just totally different. And I was actually just talking to my husband last week about this is different, right? Like, she is getting information sent to her as the student, rightly so. But what I used to be included on, or used to be sort of aware of, I'm not anymore. So it's, as a parent, it's totally flipped the switch, and just sort of interesting over time, wanting to grow independence but maintain a level of engagement with the families is a really hard thing to do. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and move us along. Now, these are just some post-it notes that we could just sort of be mindful of as we consider to think about family engagement in our schools. So the first one is that families benefit while learning more about child development in general, and specifically as it's applied to their child or to their children. It's like we mentioned earlier, right? Parents have a lot to give us in terms of knowledge of their child, and we have a lot to give them in terms of child development in general, and specific goals and development of their child. Engagement in the preschool years contributes to the success of children. And so, of course, what I mean by that is family engagement in the preschool years contributes to that success. Children and families with low incomes experience added benefits from their early childhood education when their families are engaged with their child care or their school. Programs with effective family engagement respond best to the individual needs of diverse families. So as you continue to get to know those families, you start to recognize what they might need in their home, whether that's financial assistance, whether that's some paper and pencils that the children can draw and be creative on the weekends. Maybe it's access to a weekend food program, whatever it might be. You're not going to know these things if the family doesn't actively tell you. And they're not going to tell you if they don't have a positive relationship with you. Like that old PSA, the more you know, right? Students experience improved social and emotional and behavioral development when family engagement strategies are strong. Strong family engagement efforts can support improved transitions among grades and into school. And intensive supports such as home visiting and parent group memberships have the strongest impact on child outcomes. These are all data points just to sort of be aware of. And then I wanted to share this video, so I just need to back out of here real quick. It's animated, but the message that the video sends is one that sort of earmarks everything that we've been talking about, but also does it in a way that makes it seem really doable. Because if there's one thing I don't want to do, it's add work to somebody's plate or to make something look easy when it's actually not. So just give this 2 seconds to load. I'll share this with you. Actually, I'm just going to stop my video for a moment so I can help.
As we work to help every child succeed and to close gaps in student achievement, we often assume school is the main place that learning is going to happen. Take Esma. It used to seem to her family and her educators that Esma is always at school. Not true, it turns out. Esma and other students actually spend 82% of their waking hours at home or in their community. All those weekends, weeknights, and breaks add up. When they realized that, the educators in Esma's school district decided to work harder on making the most of the biggest partner in her learning life, her family. This can look different in every school, but for Esma's teacher, it means instead of spending his time arranging a traditional open house, he organizes grade-level parent meetings. Here, Esma's family saw data on how the class is doing in math, reading, social and emotional learning. They practiced new ways to help Esma at home and set goals for how they'll help her improve. Everyone learned from each other as the group talked about how to help the students. Also, near the start of the school year, some staff from Esma's school visited her home. They looked for the assets her family members can bring to the educational process. They learned about their languages, their culture, their lives, their world. Grandpa offered to be a resource for other English learner families, and the school also listened and learned from the family's perspective on Esma's needs. They learned how Mom helps her calm down and focus. This kind of family engagement also makes it easier for the district to develop individualized education programs for students, including those in special education. The foundation is already there for families to engage in their students' academic and career planning too, making that more effective. Throughout the year, the family can attend workshops at the school on things like mental health, homework, or career exploration. Esma's mom saw those meetings on a poster in her work break room, and now she's inviting other parent friends to go with her. Esma's school district works with local businesses, places of worship, the public library, and other partners to reach students and families where they're already spending time. The school provides information frequently in a variety of ways so they can reach every family. Text messages are offered in the most common languages of local families. Esma's family gets photos from her teacher so they know what she's doing during the day. Communication between the school and the family is a group effort focused on helping Esma achieve her learning goals. When Esma wasn't sure what to do on a science assignment, her family knew to contact the teacher for a little clarification. Educators take a positive approach as they look for solutions to any challenges experienced on either side. They're always looking for the family's strengths. Also, when mom mentions that Esma has trouble making friends, the teacher knows to refer her to the school counselor. The counselor then helps the family join a local boys and girls club with lots of activities for Esma. The teacher knew to do this because the school counselor led staff trainings on resources available in the community and how to help families access them. There's no danger of a family like Esma's ever feeling like an occasional onlooker. The school knows what families have to offer, and the family knows what's going on in the classroom and how to support it. They feel they are active and regular collaborators and decision makers. The district gives families opportunities to learn how to help children succeed at each level of the school system and to serve on school groups. At school gatherings, Esma's adult stepsister and close next-door neighbor also feel included in the community. Staff at the school are trained to be as inclusive as possible, welcoming as learning partners anyone who cares about the child. Esma's school has moved from parent involvement to family engagement. Not surprisingly, engaged families help students learn better. Staff members like their jobs better. Everyone wins. This is backed up by over 40 years of research. Students with engaged families, no matter their income, background, or culture, are more likely to do well in school, enroll in ambitious courses, graduate, and go on to post-secondary education. They also have stronger social skills and fewer disciplinary issues. So how do we make it happen? First, we work to make the shift across an entire school district. Sure, at the elementary level, Esma's classroom teacher is the main person her family interacts with at school, but as she gets older and her schooling more complex, collaboration is definitely bigger than one person. Really, all along the way, the family's interactions with pretty much everyone in connection with the school, from office staff to after-school staff, from bus drivers to principals, will need to be positive for them to truly feel welcomed. So it's a clear expectation in the district. Every employee has a role in helping every family feel connected to their child's learning, no matter what building or classroom that child attends. In Esma's district, a broad team that included school psychologists, social workers, counselors, families, general and special educators, and after-school program staff helped everyone in the school take family engagement to this next level in a way that works for their community. It worked. Esma's family feels like a valued member of the team. Esma, her family, and her educators feel confident that she's learning and happy at school. We have more information about how schools and families can effectively engage with each other around students' learning on our website.
Okay, let's get back to here. So I've shared that video in the past at other trainings and interactions as well. I just think it does a really nice job of sort of introducing the difference between parent involvement and family engagement, as this particular video terms it, and does a nice job of making it look and feel much more like a doable task, just one family at a time, working with one student and setting those goals and those communications right from the beginning. And then making it bigger and scaling up as that child grows through the ages and the grades, I mean. So now would be a great time if you have specific questions or comments regarding family engagement in your specific school and strategies and what have you. Of course, we're always available later. Our email addresses are here. And we're happy to connect around family engagement or any of the other 7 topics that this series has covered. But if there's anything I can answer for you now, please feel free to ask or unmute. And I'm happy to stick around for a few more minutes.